They haven't broken the rules as they stand, no. But
bro, আমি যা সুন্দর করে ইয়া করলাম তোমার ডিফারেন্ট তুমি
finish the race at Le Mans, you haven't completed
until that
half lap of the racing distance, then it doesn't count.
No, actually, okay.
And I do think that kind of regulation here would nip this completely in the bud. You'd be able to say, no, you can't just head out onto a racetrack for no good reason, just to serve a penalty, in avoidance of a later penalty, which is what they've done. In any case, I'm quite sure that this will be dealt with probably straight after this. If he'd served it and then DNF, we wouldn't be having this chat. It's the fact they brought the car in. It looked like they retired the car, only to suddenly, and again, from what it looked like, think, oh, you know what, guys? Actually, if we send him back out again, we can get this penalty done. Surely the only reason that he wasn't sent out as long as he was is because Jonathan Wheatley was on the phone to race control saying, are we allowed to send him out again? Because these guys, listen, it's not about breaking the rules, it's about Red Bull knowing this rule book inside and out. And the stewards ultimately having to say, well, I suppose by the letter of the law that's correct, but the spirit of the regulations doesn't exist. If we can do it, we do it.
Yes, right wrong. I mean, in my opinion, Red Bull, to avoid getting a penalty, they made that right call. Whether it was in regulation or not, or whether it's a gray area, that's another subject.
It's definitely within regulation, but this just at the start of today with Logan Sargent, the confusion over whether the second chassis and the third chassis, had the third chassis already started to be made up significantly enough to be considered a third car. We're already talking about changing the wording around this. Is this a regulation that they need to think about rewording in the future? Yeah, that's an ever-evolving concept of regulations of the sport. You've got to blame the game, and the game needs to just tweak that element to say that park the car in the garage, you can't get it back out again for that reason. Well, let's say Sergio would come back into the race after 10-15 laps of sitting in the pits and decided, actually, we're going to take it through to the conclusion. Say a safety car comes out. Is he allowed to then catch up the 15 laps that he's been sat in the pits and we will keep DNF for those 15 laps and he's then back on the league?
That's the old NASCAR lucky dog rule where you laps back.
What's the end? Surely there has to be a point of when you step out of the car in the garage, you're out. Surely, I think in a sprint, in a Grand Prix, if you park the car up in the garage and you step out of the car, that's it. You're out of the race, aren't you? I mean, the short answer is have teams declare when they're DNF. Yeah. And I suppose they just never will. Just in case. No, we just brought him in for a bet. Actually, I didn't say DNF. I said but we said bring the car in to retire. What we meant was Sergio. Let's talk about his races, these last two, Singapore and here, a litany of mistakes from him. What is going on with Sergio Perez? Because he's a Grand Prix winning driver. He's a phenomenal racer on his day. What is going on with Sergio that is creating these mistakes that are not representative of the driver of this quality and this experience?
Yeah, it's so difficult for me to see, because he's a friend of mine and I know the race driver he is, and he started the season so well. He was, leading the championship at one point this season, and I just don't know what happened. He's kind of where the results haven't come. Every weekend, and these little mistakes that are costing him good results, and the pressure keeps mounting on.
That was the mistake with Sonoda that Albon put Sonoda under. There was the impact with Albon, in which he received a 5-second penalty that had absolutely no effect on his Grand Prix result. And I think one of the big questions I want to ask here again is about penalties. Is a 5-second penalty enough for these kind of contexts? Do we need to bring back drive-through penalties? Were the penalties decided too fast today? And I know that sounds weird, but they seem to be decided so quickly that actually the full gravity of what these incidents had caused weren't done when they were with their penalties. Yeah, there's a lot of questions there, and there's a lot of context around, but I do think that the structure of the sport, the structure of the system that we have at the moment entices a move like the one on Alex Albon at the back end of the bunch you want to try and get into the points. Yeah, for me, I've always thought that penalties should have an element of consequence applied to them. You know, and it's always the injured party will always look at the driver who's made contact with them if it's a penalty and say, "Oh man, I'm out of the race. Why is that driver only 5 seconds down the road still picking up points from the Grand Prix?" Then, of course, there's the difficulty of the fair application of the rules and the fact we do have a written, codified document about how these penalties are to be applied and should have, and that we penalise the incident rather than the outcome. And I know you said there needs to be an element of that that's reworked. The context is in that document. The context of a move, if it's, you know, a last lap lunge or the tyre mileage is taken into account, everything is taken into account by the stewards. But perhaps we need to look at it and say, it's impossible to finish ahead of the driver you've taken out of the race. The outcomes of that would be absolutely enormous. I'd have to think about it long and hard to come up with a slam dunk solution that would satisfy everybody watching the sport and all the competitors as well.
Surely, because every race incident is unique. There is no such thing as a cover-all scenario. These moves that you do, that you put on as racing drivers, they exist in the grey areas. They will never be pure black and white. 100%. I don't think any incident is black and white, and I think it's very difficult to always put a certain penalty of, oh, there was a racing incident involved. There wasn't a racing incident. There was a penalty. It's only 5 seconds. No, because what if that driver had continued, or if that driver ended up staying out of the race? Is 5 seconds enough? Because, for example, when Sergio hit Kevin today, I mean, he dropped back 30 seconds. So Kevin was fighting for 12th, 11th at the time. Maybe he wouldn't finish in the points, but then we were 30 seconds back.
And you're never going to know for that.
No, and then you're never going to recover as well as 30 seconds. So basically the race you're racing for was over at that point of contact. So is 5 second penalty enough?
And exactly the same as what happened between Sergio and Alex Albon in Singapore. Robs them of the chance to possibly get the points. The one thing we can do to move towards consistency, I believe, is bring the same, if possible, or at least the core group, to every single race. Stewards. But then do you fall into a scenario where drivers will claim favouritism or bias, that one driver consistently gets dealt with more harshly than the others because it's the same thing about the racetrack.
Yeah.
This is the question. I mean, look,
I'm just posing the question.
Yeah, it certainly is a question, and that is the issue when, I mean, I would always advocate having a steward room full of race car drivers, but then, you know, people have careers, people have, again, favourites, relationships, so on and so forth. It's a very, very small sport, and that's the issue with putting a steward's room full of drivers in front of almost a jury of their peers in front of these guys. Well, you've heard enough from us. Let's hear from Sergio Perez on what he thinks of his day out on track.
Sergio, incident-packed race for you. Can you just talk us through the incidents of that one incident that happened, and then also the decision to send you back out?
Yeah, it was just a disastrous weekend. It all started in the turn one with a really bad start, and I was squeezed down.
Bro.
There was just a passenger there.
I saw you going for it.
I think we carried a lot of damage in the car as well, and that just made it a lot harder for us.
Behind us, it looks like we're about to see Max win the race and give Red Bull constructors